So abandonment is a lot of hell. The first thing that happens to you in abandonment is you're thrown to the wolves, okay? When you're thrown to the wolves, and I mean the coyotes, right? They come after you first. And this what happened to me, what happened to me after my wife abandoned me with the kids is I got hit up by a Russian. It was a female because my wife is gone. She was gone for about 100 days. And I figured, this was it. And then the process servers were knocking on my door. So I figured, yeah, she's never coming back. And, that's it, so, I'm doing things like I'm doing meal replacement bars and starving and running around and exercising and all this one. It's all part of abandonment. I've done it all before. It's all the same thing. So she disguised herself as a possible lover that was coming to America. Supposedly, okay, look, I'm writing the play about it called Russian Butterfly. And the big thing was she knew that my wife had left, and I love this little thing right here. So she knew that my wife had left, and she knew that the kids were gone, and I had no protection, and I was trying to step up in the pay grade market, and she felt for me. So she said she fell in love with me. I believed all this stuff, and then she said she needed documents. I gave her $500, and then she said she needed a round trip ticket because that was part of her touring visa, which made sense. All of it seems to make sense. Anyway, I got a text message from her, which I rarely do. I got a phone call from her. She was very upset when she got stopped at customs, and supposedly she had to prove this 2,700, which I talked to a Brazilian, and he mentioned the same thing. Okay, and I picked him up. He was a passenger. I picked up him and an older gentleman. I picked up and took to Dallas from DFW, and he told me that in Brazil they actually do that. They do check to see if you have any money. So I had read this New York Times article that was written in 2004 by Chivers, C.J. Chivers or something. And it was about these Russian women that were lying to American men and trying to get their money. But then I found the article because I looked up, I put it in a search engine. Russian stopped at customs and checked for 2,700. And that's when it came up. Dialogue came up on Google somewhere. It found something. And it said this could be, could be fraud. They don't stop you in Russia and check your money to see if you're going to America and you have enough money. But then I talked to the Brazilian that had got here. He said they do that. That customs will check them coming out of Brazil's real weird. And they make sure they have enough money on them before they can go through customs. So I get a text message, and she has an address for me to come pick her up at this rental car lot off the other side of DFW. And I'm thinking, and this is after I had talked to the Brazilian, and I'm thinking, and I had already called her a fraudster. I've already called her a fraud. And she got mad at me about that. And all of a sudden she says she's waiting for me, but I don't wake up, and I don't know if she knows my schedule, but I don't wake up until like 5 in the afternoon. If that, sometimes 7 in the afternoon. I work all night long because there's no traffic. And I can work more efficient with no traffic. So I get this text message, and she's like, "Come get me. Where art thou, my love?" And it was Elle. And I was like, this can't be real. So I go to this car lot right on the other side of DFW airport. And it's in the middle of kind of nowhere on the side of the airport. And I don't know if she's looking up this address or what she's doing. It was like a car lot for infinity. I mean, did she get a car? Like a rental car, and she's driving around Dallas? Then she sends me this email, and I tell her on the email, and I didn't even know if it was her, if it was someone seeing these posts and had sent me a text that knew me, and they were playing a joke on me. So I was like, my God. So I sent her an email, and then she sent me an email back saying, I'm at the airport. I'm leaving in 30 minutes. So my only option, and I was exhausted. I had just finished up Hidden Drive, and I was still editing Hidden Drive and getting ready for the play reading that we're going to be doing for a podcast. And I was completely exhausted, and my only option was to go to the airport and find all the flights that were leaving, going back to Russia, and stop her, And I couldn't do it. I sent her an email. I said, look, come to my address. Here's my address. Here's my phone number. Come find me. I guess if she really loved me, then she'd be willing to wait at the airport or whatever. But then she said she went back to Russia. And also before she came, this is all really weird, because she told me that she was going to tear up the documents and tear up the ticket, and she was never going to come to America, and she was going to just go back to Mias, Russia, and just start her life back in the orphanage. Maybe that's what God wants her to do. But supposedly she came here at the DFW airport, and she went to some car lot place. I don't know. It didn't make any sense. It made sense if she told me to pick her up at a terminal, or if she was at the airport. But she was like beside the airport. But there was a whole big field. And then there was like, did she walk across this field? Did she take a ride share to this place to try to get a rental car? Or it was like a port authority place or something. Maybe they were checking her bags, or she had to go and be interviewed or something. I don't know what was going on. But anyway, she said she was flying back, and 30 minutes was really not enough time. And I said, look, if you want to stay. Here's my address. If you want to come knock on my door, here's my phone number. She hasn't called me. She only called me one morning for 20 minutes, and she sounded like she was really upset. She was like tears because customs didn't just let her in. Everything was planned out, and everything went to hell. She had said something like that in one of her earlier posts, that let's not make any plans, because sometimes the plans don't come true, or the plans don't go the way that we want them to go. And that was one of her beginning posts. So I don't know if this is all fake or real. I don't know. That's the whole thing weird, or that's the whole thing that makes Russia Butterfly kind of odd, is because the main character, Ash Cole, doesn't know if this woman is real or fraud. Now, there's also another woman giving him text out of Ohio that is trying to get his like American Express account number, and that's just, there's no way. And she would call, but there would be no one on the other end. And I would tell her to call me, and then she said her speaker was broken on the phone. So here's the thing about fraud. They're very sneaky about talking to you on the phone, because you can when you listen, you can hear fraud in someone's voice more so than you can in their words that they write. That's one thing. Also, usually fraud will come in text messages, or it'll come in emails. Okay. Don't ever give money to anyone where it's coming through only emails and you don't speak to them. And also, another thing about Western Union is they don't want you to send money based on a telephone call, or what they call telemarketing. And that I'm not doing. So that's it. I'm never sending money through Western Union to anyone that I've never met in person that I don't know. But if she did get here and I did meet her, then maybe I would send her money. And plus, maybe it's just a desperate person in Russia, that's starving. Because she mentioned she was starving in the Moscow airport and things like that. Maybe it's a desperate person. Maybe it's a form of tithing to the poor. Because if someone's that desperate, you can do it. Obviously, if they're asking for money, they need money. If it's an organization like a telemarketing ring, because some telemarketers, they will ask for credit cards. If they get the credit card number, you're buying into their supposed sell, which they can send you paperwork in the mail, which is what we ask for. Now, one thing I did ask for Elle is I asked her to send me a letter in the mail. That would at least give me an address. She did give me an address. So she could be a real person. I don't know. There were some clues saying that she is a real person. She's certainly not AI, because I tested that. I have a feeling that some of this may be coming out of an AI program mixed in with real dialogue. Maybe. I don't know how advanced the Russians are, but I know that there is fraud coming out of Russia for sure. Now I know. Um, because I have no physical proof or ocular proof that she's even real. Another thing too about fraud is you can have conversations on a phone or you can have conversation on Skyping that can make it more real. But when you're dealing with someone on a dating line, the first thing that's going to make it real is the phone call that you're listening to. Okay? So you're going to be listening to a phone call. You're going to listen to the voice. Then you go to the next step where you go to a coffee bar. And that's how I met my wife. I met my wife on a dating site. I met her and we have 3 children. So dating sites do work. I'm not against dating sites. It's when they start asking for money or they're in a foreign country, and it works well with a foreign country because they want to come here and they want to visit, and see who you are, see what this great country's about, and you're kind of excited because you're like, I want you to come to my country. I want you to come and see my country, and I'll show you how great it is and how fun it is and things. That you can easily be persuaded. You can easily be persuaded to help these foreign people, and I'm sure it's going on all the time. My suggestion to you is if it happens, listen first. You're not going to be able to meet them because at least you want to fly to their country. That's another thing too, is I was willing to fly to Russia. I didn't really want to because I didn't have a lot of money at the time, and I don't know for sure about the security. They take them out of the back countries of Russia. I don't know exactly what's going on there. And plus, I've seen movies like Hostile and stuff like that, Hostel and things like that. But I've been to Czech Republic, but I went with a group. And going to Europe by yourself, you have to be a little weary. But I thought about doing that just to meet her at the airport to see what she's like. But then I don't want to be stopped in customs and questioned and things like that. But supposedly she got through customs. She came to DFW airport. Maybe she did. It's a nice flight. It's a nice airport. Maybe she walked around. I don't know. You don't really know until you meet in person. So when you're dealing with a long distance relationship where it's only maybe phone calls or text messages or text, try to at least get it to a phone call where you're listening. Don't send money through Western Union. Don't do that. Give the money in person. If they're desperate, give it to them in person. You don't know if that's going to an organization, right, or a group of thieves, and there's loyalty among thieves. But realize this though. Try to meet them in person first. Try to find a way to do that. Don't give money for an airline ticket or a round trip ticket or a visa or a passport. Don't do any of that. It's a waste of money. That's part of the fraud. So I'm calling this a touring visa fraud is what is coming out of Russia. And so there was something in 2004 that was published by Chivers. It's a New York Times article, which is kind of what the play is based on. So the first act is very heavy in this fraud and this man losing his imagination, or losing it to his imagination that this person can possibly be real. So he's buying into this false circumstance, or he's buying into this imaginary circumstance, right? Then he goes to the fact that he sends money to it, and then he realizes it's false. So we get into Act 2 where we're only focusing on the letters in Act 2. You're only hearing the letters. In the first act, you do hear the letters, but then you get into his monologue, his soliloquy, you get into his circumstance, you get into the exposition of where he's coming from. And Act 3, it is a 3-act. So I don't know. Okay, and also another thing about first act, there you do see some of his work. So you see him talking to someone in rideshare with the character named Jay. And you also get the idea that Ash Cole's an actor and a writer, a storyteller, things like that. You get the conversation with Jay. Then Act 2, you get the letters between him and Elle, which are kind of funny, and then some of them are serious. Then in Act 3, I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if Angelica's going to come back to him, the character Angelica. I don't know what's going to happen in Act 3. I don't know if he's going to get involved with the church again, if he's going to surrender his life over to God, if he's going to continue trying to fight in this isolation, if he's going to continue to be abandoned, if he's going to find peace with his abandonment. I don't know where Act 3 is going to go. I don't know. I have no clue. I don't really want to know right now. I just know when it comes time to write Act 3, then I'll do it. What I usually do with plays is I'll go through the beginning, Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3, or Act 1 and 2. Sometimes I do one acts. But I just roughly draw it. I just put it all out there first. I could do it all at once. I think Sam Shepard would just do that with all his plays. It was just all at once, and then that was it. And he published it, or he would He would give it to the editor. It'd be all at once, and he would just boom, put it on stage. How he did True West, I don't know. That's a brilliant piece. From the very beginning word to the very end, it's all a complete masterpiece. I think True West is his best work, even better than Buried Child. But he did just kind of, it's like a long stroke with a paintbrush. So you have to do that at first, and then you find out what the plot is. Then you find out what the characters are, and then you start connecting the dots. That's what I do. So I always have the original version, and then I start connecting dots because I'm into plot and I'm into character, and I like things. I'm a perfectionist. I'm not really like Shepard. I'm my own thing, but I do like Sam, but I'm my own thing. And I think Annie Baker is a great female playwright that is brilliant with connecting the dots, but she's also good with rhythm, and she's very good with rhythm and placement of the characters and how they're telling the story. And she's a master with set design and a lot of other things. But anyway, this one is not, the set is very it's going to be very abstract. It's almost going to be like in a black box kind of theater where it's a bare stage. All the items, the props are invisible. So the laptops are invisible. There may be little pieces of furniture around to show a kitchen, to show a couch, like maybe like a living room to hint at a bedroom. There might be a bed on stage, and then a couch, and then maybe like a table, but everything's invisible. So if they're on a laptop, it's invisible. If they're on a smartphone, it's invisible. It's pantomimed. And then he's talking to the audience in a way where the audience can hear him. It's a soliloquy, but it's not shared. It's not duologue. So he's not looking at the audience talking. He's picturing them because he's a playwright, for one thing. Ash Cole's a playwright in this moment of being in fraud, meaning being tricked by this Rushin. So the letters are going back and forth from the laptop, and he's talking about his circumstance with his mother-in-law and with his wife that has abandoned him, and his children being gone. He's in an empty apartment. And that's where it's set. But right now it's only in the apartment. But it's at a very beginning infant stage, so I have to really go back and connect the dots, and it's going to take me some time. Now, putting Russian Butterfly aside, Hidden Drive will be coming out soon. And that one I've worked on for about 6 years, but I didn't work on it consistently for 6 years. It's set like wine in a cellar for 6 years. It's been sitting for a long time, since 2012. I wrote it in Maine, most of it in Dover. I wrote some of it in Parkman, I believe, and I wrote it on a composite book. So I wrote it with a pen on like a journal. And it's kind of a fantasy love play, or a daydream play is what I'd like to call it. A daydream play, like a daydreaming. But it's about love and generation gap, and love, and an older man in love with a younger girl, and then an ex-wife is involved in it. This one comes out of my first marriage, not my second. The children are fantasized in it, almost like Who's Afraid in Virginia Woolf and stuff. And what I'm realizing, here's a hint about Hidden Drive too. I go back and I realize a lot of my body wrote this thing rather than my mind, because I saw these moments in it where Sharon and Angie kind of knew each other and planned their visitation with Peter, the protagonist. So they plan their visitation when he's supposed to be in this cabin alone in the middle of the wilderness in Maine writing this novel, and all of a sudden Angie shows up, and then Sharon shows up. But yet I find out that Sharon and Angie conspired their visit, and then they're kind of pretending like they don't know each other, because there's a mentioning when Angie accidentally says, "Oh, I have a phone in the car," when he's looking for a cell phone, whenever his cell phone's dead, and someone had thrown a rock in the car. I mean, someone had thrown a rock through the window into the cabin. You have to read the play, but Angie says, I have a phone in my car," and she mentions that. Then I realize when Sharon comes, they show each other their phones. So I'm going to have this moment where Sharon slips the phone to Angie because she knows her. So this is a weird psychology about women. This play really is. It's it's a weird psychology about women approaching men that maybe have been abandoned or been hurt. And I think this happened in my first marriage when I formed a relationship with a woman that knew my first wife. And then my wife had left me. And then later, a year later, I had formed this relationship with this woman that knew my wife. And it wasn't a good relationship, but there had to be some kind of communication between my wife and this other woman. But this is kind of, like I said, a daydream play about that kind of communication between his ex-wife and this younger woman. And this like maybe permission that the ex-wife is like, look, I can't handle him anymore. I'm going to throw him to this young gal or something. I don't know if Woody Allen hit on this. I'm sure Woody Allen has been like a master of hitting on relationships with women and either divorcees or men. I'm sure if I go through Woody Allen's anthologies and all his work, I'm sure somewhere there is this happening between a younger Manhattan kind of is like that. I just can't think of where the ex-wife, offers this younger woman to him. It's in the Bible. I guess it is. I guess it is. I mean, if you look at Abraham and Sarah, she offers kind of him Hagar. She gives the permission for Abraham to have Hagar. I never thought about that. Anyway, this is kind of what I'm doing with Hidden Drive. So you'll have to see it, and the reading will be coming out soon. All right.